into whatever this thing is we haven't done in a few months. I'm
I
flying Ryan Gokers along with.
Tampa Motor Mouth overall. Now, I think how this whole thing works out. Now, you might have to refresh my memory, right? I think we have this thing. It's call and microphone. We talk and say stupid crap into it, and then we like go back and forth with
Oh,
each other.
stupid crap! Like I'm joining as a member of the Ravens. Woo! Sorry, that was Antonio Brown. Don't believe the insane kids. Antonio Brown claiming he's joining the Ravens. The Ravens have not agreed to anything, as far as I can tell. He's just being a turd.
Yeah, because as we were talking about it and joking about it privately, I was imagining some rando reporter going up to GM DaCosta and go, excuse me, Mr. DaCosta, are you aware that Antonio Brown is going to be on the Ravens? And you sort of, doesn't RCA dog look, who?
Who?
Huh?
No, we don't employ the mentally incapacitated, sir.
And and because if you think about it, just in the couple recent times, I mean, it never stops with this guy. He became a 95% majority owner. Although if you ask him, he'll say he's the sole owner. I believe in the Arena Football League franchise, the Albany Empire, and something happened to where he got into some heated argument with a security guard on the field, and also on the side, he was being sued by a jeweler for $1 million. That's a lot of jewelry.
A lot of stuff you don't need in that. Yep. Don't believe what you've heard until you hear it from a trained adult, as preferably a member of the Ravens or a beat reporter from somebody, because Antonio Brown is completely insane. Anyways, let's talk.
Speaking
Yeah.
speaking of the Ravens, we could do a proper segue to one
Yeah.
of the two stories that the
Well, there's
NFL
three big offseason stories. This
that
one's
the
going to be the first one.
that the NFL media has been hitting us over the head incessantly and endlessly. Lamar Jackson, Lamar Jackson, Lamar Jackson. Then it was sort of tapering off a little bit until the Jalen Hurts contract was sort of dropped on everyone. And oh, he's the biggest paid quarterback in the entire NFL. And Lamar sort of was ramping up again after that. You had the rumors of, well, Lamar Jackson, okay, maybe he would be traded to the 49ers as they definitely need a quarterback, maybe or two. But then all of a sudden, right before the draft, that was just the magic week because that story, of course, the Aaron Rodgers thing, that never ending. So Lamar Jackson has the Brinks truck back up to him as a nice result. You just sort of had a feeling that it didn't make sense that he recruited Odell Beckham to play with the Ravens, as Odell, of course, was supposed to go to the New York Jets that Monday. And then Easter Sunday had the big news drop sort of out everywhere, like what he's signing with the Ravens, sort of an unexpected move for them. And then he, well, obviously didn't go to Jets, and of course he was on a certain wish list we all remember.
Mhm. Yeah, Odell Beckham signed, and it kind of gave away the ending of this story a few weeks before it occurred. Lamar Jackson signs the biggest deal in NFL history. I believe it's 5 years, just over 255 million, because it had to beat Jalen Hurts, even though I think Jalen Hurts is a better player. But yeah, he's back with the Ravens, and that's going to be good things. The AFC is going to be absolutely insane. I mean, outside of Jalen Hurts and I guess Dak Prescott, there's really not a good quarterback left in the NFC. I mean,
So
Kyler Murray. There's not much out there. I mean, Bryce Young, who we'll talk about when we get to our draft coverage, might be a top 5 NFC quarterback right now.
then, of course, the other story that the NFL constantly seemed to hit us over the head with incessantly was, of course, Aaron Rodgers, who we all know the timeline. You had the indecision. You're thinking, okay, here we go again. And Brian's getting cheesy there.
Yeah.
We have the whole indecision of Brett Favre Act Two going on, and not sure what he's going to do. And of course, the whole darkness retreat, aka camping for really rich people. Then, of course, not a simple press conference, but an announcement of his intention to play for the New York Jets, of course, on the Pat McAfee show. And then after that, it just hit a quagmire because the Jets did not want to give up a first round pick by any stretch of the imagination, and the Packers found a way around it. And in case anybody out there, because I know you have a whole bunch of folks out there who are Jets are going to the Super Bowl in caps, right? I'm sure we've had a social media post
I've had to
or
correct
two.
several people that is not going to happen.
And all you have to do to figure out how much expectation, how much real expectation people have for Aaron Rodgers as you look at what the condition is that one second round pick becomes a first round pick. It's not deep run or to the Super Bowl, not to the conference championship. It's not even to the divisional round. It's not even get in the freaking playoffs. It's if Aaron Rodgers plays 65% of the snaps for the total complete season, then it flips and becomes a first round pick, meaning there's not a whole lot of expectation here, kids.
Yeah, so the Packers and the Jets deal is a little more complicated than you might think. They switched first round picks this year. They've both already taken these picks. The Packers moved up to 13, the Jets moved back to 15. Then the Packers got a second round pick number 42 this year. They got a sixth round pick, I believe it was pick 203, but don't quote me on that. And then they got the second round pick that's conditional that could move to a first round pick should Aaron Rodgers play 65% of the snaps. The Jets also got pick 170, a fifth round pick from the Packers in this deal. And of course, Aaron Rodgers. Anybody who is saying that this makes the Jets the Super Bowl favorites in the AFC is just absolutely insane. I think there's a case to be made. They're still the third best team in that division. And there's a case to be made that Aaron Rodgers might be the third best quarterback at this moment in that division, depending on your feelings on Tua Tagovailoa, who played at an MVP level when healthy last year. Also, not to mention, if you watch the draft, you saw a lot of Lombardi trophies in Kansas City where the draft's being held because the Kansas City Chiefs, they've been in 5 straight AFC championship games, 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls, winning 2 of them. They're the favorites until they're dethroned. They are the new Patriots. Until you beat them, you are not the favorite. So if you're saying the Jets are the favorite because they got a 39-year-old quarterback coming off one of his, if not the worst season of his career where he was fully healthy, you're not really seeing the full story. I've talked to some people who are more Packers oriented, and they said, the receivers were bad last year. The receivers couldn't catch. The offensive line was bad. Well, I mean, the Jets have a decent offensive line, but you brought Allen Lazard over, who was your number one receiver for half the season. If the receivers were that bad, why would you bring one back?
And I was wondering how much of a chance he would have Aaron Rodgers reneging or some kind of crazy trade. Because if you think about it, only one of those 4 players on the quote unquote wish list were signed by the Jets.
Apparently, the wish list was kind of overblown. It wasn't a real thing. It was like, hey, if you can get these 4 guys, that'd be great. If not, I understand. I think getting one of them, Allen Lazard, was probably the biggest one. If you could have gotten Odell Beckham Jr., that would have been great. But maybe it's just me. I'm not convinced the Jets are ready to make that huge leap. Their defense overperformed last year on an easy schedule. They're going to face a more difficult schedule this year as the third-place team as opposed to the last-place team they were before. And Breece Hall still coming back from that ACL injury. He's not going to be 100%. It seems like running backs take at least one more year to get fully healthy and back to stride. Look at Saquon Barkley. Year coming back from the ACL, played all the season, didn't miss time, was not 100% effective. Second year, he looked a lot better, but kept getting that ankle injury. So no guarantee he's going to be up to speed. Garrett Wilson was great with Mike White, terrible with Zach Wilson, who was a joke and probably not going to be on that team very much longer. So we'll see. Aaron Rodgers historically has had a hard time getting in rhythm with young receivers. You saw it last year with Dobbs, when Christian Watson, it took half the season for him to get in line with one of them decent enough to be good. So we'll see. If he and Garrett Wilson get on the same page early, they'll be dangerous. But if they come out of the gates a little bit slow, that division could eat them up. I mean, the Bills, legitimate Super Bowl contender. The Dolphins, probably the next tier down. But if they got to the Super Bowl, Joel, I don't think anyone's going to be like, what? They did what? This is a team ready to go, not to mention the rumors that Dalvin Cook wants to come to Miami now as well to pair with Waddle and Tyreek and everybody else.
Yeah, plus you have the whole Tyreek Hill wanting to retire early, so that window of opportunity is closing there.
Hey, he's got his full contract, and we'll see what happens at the end of that. But that's just in the division. Like I mentioned already, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens. Now that they got Lamar Jackson, the Chargers and Jaguars look to be on the ascending track, even though the Chargers find ways to blow games. The AFC, I hate to say it, but is Rodgers a top 5 quarterback in the AFC when you have Allen, you have Mahomes, you have Lamar, you have Tua, you have Herbert, you have Burrow? It's like, it's a good move. It's the best quarterback the Jets have had since at least Brett Favre, if not going all the way back to Joe Namath. But is it enough?
Well, I was also wondering which one of these quotes sort of made your eye rolls more. The one, of course, we have with Zach Wilson talking about how this trade affects me personally, and it will for the next 20 years, or the 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 Aaron Rodgers. Gee, that trophy case looks real empty. I'm just kind of curious with your eye roll a meter. Which one of those is sort of like a boy or
It's
just
Zach
both
Wilson. It's not close. Aaron Rodgers saying, hey, this trophy case is a little barren. Let's try and fill that up. The Jets haven't won a lot. They haven't been in the playoffs since 2010. 2010. They haven't had a winning season since 2015. This is not a team that has won the division, won playoff games. Super Bowls, really not at all, just since Joe Namath. And that was Super Bowl number 3, and we're in the late 50s right now. So he's not wrong. Zach Wilson, oh, this is going to affect me. Yeah, when you're selling car insurance at your local State Farm office because you're an NFL star and State Farm will employ you, yeah, it's really going to affect you because it's going to cost you millions of dollars. If he is smart, he's going to get right in line behind Aaron Rodgers, learn what this guy does other than the ayahuasca or whatever it's called, learn how he is as a professional because he is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and don't be Zach Wilson that we've seen for the first couple of years, and you might just have a shot of sticking as a backup like Jameis Winston in this league.
Wouldn't an appropriate quote be like The Rock, know your role and shut your mouth type?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, kid. There's an adult here. You sit down and don't try and go after his mom. Anyways, the third story before we get to the draft, one you didn't think about or mention.
Well, because I think there was something that sort of happened in Detroit that kind of surprised everybody as you had a whole bunch of players, but the most notable
that one
name.
Too. Yes, that one too. That was the one I was going on, but that one too.
The most notable name, of course, Jameson Williams, was betting on non-NFL games inside the facility, which, of course, from what I understand, they can do it outside.
If he took 3 steps outside the front door and did the same thing, it's not a penalty. It's not a suspension. Quintez Cephas, though, he was betting on games. He's now been cut with 3 other players. Sports betting is a great thing unless you do it stupidly. If you are in the NFL, don't bet on NFL games, period, end of discussion. And don't bet at work. I mean, that's a good rule of life for anybody with a job. Don't do sports gambling at work unless your job is sports gambling.
Granted, you definitely have to, I'm sure there's a bunch of folks who are crying hypocrisy just because you have the NFL that's in league, of course, with DraftKings, with FanDuels, with a major known casino. And so at one time they're saying, on one hand, they're going, you can't bet on games, but on the other hand, every single podcast, every single show has some kind of ad for these industries that are out there, and we're making money hand over fist. But at the same time, it's just kind of a whole Pandora's box as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I just can't imagine this. Hey, Jameson, you're going to get suspended. Why? Because you didn't do this before you bet. That's it. That's the suspension. You didn't go 15 feet outside the front door.
Anyone remember Calvin Ridley? Hello?
Betting on games. If you're betting on NFL games,
think McFly.
If you're betting on NFL games, there's integrity of the sport issues, and that's a different thing altogether. But I placed a bet while at the team facility. That's kind of dumb if it's not on the NFL. But gone for 6 games. But no, Joel, the third big story I was referring to was one $6.05 billion sale in the NFL that finally got rid of the worst owner in sports history. Looks like it's going to be official sometime in mid-May. But the Washington Commanders, the Turds, the football teams, or the old Skins, if you go back way back to those days, have officially been sold to the owner of the 76ers and the group he is part of for $6.05 billion. Dan Snyder, he'll be gone, but he'll be gone on a big fat sack of cash as well.
Do you think all throughout the facility, when the news story broke, they cranked from the Wizard of Oz, ding dong, which is
Well, if you listen to the stories that have come out about the workplace situation, the misogynistic stuff around that office, there's going to be a lot of celebrating. And to quote Coach McDaniels for the Dolphins, wow, $6 billion, and I couldn't even get a free cup of coffee. That's the kind of organization it was. The good news is this year they put out a report that the players basically said how they feel about the team facility and the team operations and how they're running. Dolphins were number 2. Vikings were number 1, but down at the bottom was the Commanders. So at least they got a list of things they can improve on right off the bat.
Did you see the story where I thought that I saw that the Arizona Cardinals actually charged their players for meals?
Yeah, that was another one near the bottom of the list as well. All right, so that is the big that's the big offseason stuff caught up. So let's go to round 1 of the NFL draft. And Joel, I don't know if you're like me, but going into this, who did you think was going to be the most interesting team? Because I was right, because I thought it was going to be the Houston Texans from the start, because a couple weeks back they said, hey, at number 2, we might not be taking a quarterback.
Well, I figured you would have like a whole slew of quarterbacks go early, especially with the way that this whole setup was. I mean, obviously, because Carolina, of course, traded up with the Bears with that sweet deal. They ended up getting, of course, DJ Moore as a part of it. But I just think that it was going fairly predictably until, of course, the 2 biggest surprises, which were Indianapolis Colts and Atlanta Falcons.
Well, we got to start at 1. Carolina Panthers, no surprise take, Bryce Young. At number 2, the Houston Texans, who flirted with not taking a quarterback. Who knows? Maybe they'll go back and get one at 12. They do take C.J. Stroud at number 2. And then the Texans trade the 12th pick, a first-rounder next year, pick 105, and a third-rounder next year to move back into the number 3 spot. So back-to-back, get the best defender in the draft, Will Anderson Jr. out of Alabama. Then the Colts had the decision, was it going to be Anthony Richardson or Will Levis? If you've followed the story of the day of Will Levis not being drafted at all, that's a bad look. You know it wasn't him. Anthony Richardson out of Florida, the quarterback who just has too many gifted physical abilities for Coach Steichen to pass up after all the success with Jalen Hurts. He goes number 4, and I like the pick. I think he knows how to operate with that kind of a quarterback, so this could be a very good thing for the Colts.
Yeah, because the Colts definitely, if you saw any of this year, their banner was they gave up the biggest loss of the entire history in the NFL to the Vikings. I mean, that's not what you want to be remembered for. And when your roster has Matt Ryan, who I'd be very surprised if he's rostered this year, and just Sam Ellinger. I mean, Nick Foles. I mean, I feel for anybody who had to stream any of those options because of injury this year.
Yeah, no Jonathan Taylor for a good part of the year. Michael Pittman had a down year. It was just rough for the Colts. The offensive line was beat up. This guy might really open things up, at least on the ground. So Jonathan Taylor, I think, gets a little bit of a boost. Not going to be great in the passing game year 1, but it's going to be an interesting play. Seahawks go with a cornerback in Devin Witherspoon. The Cardinals trade back up from 12 to number 6 to get the number 1 offensive lineman of the draft, Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State, to protect the mending from the ACL injury, Kyler Murray, once he comes back. The Raiders, which seem to be the landing spot projection for Will Levis if he got past number 4, they did not take a quarterback. They're going to stick with Jimmy G, at least for right now. Take edge rusher Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. And then the fireworks really started. Number 8, the Atlanta Falcons select running back from Texas, Bijan Robinson. He was the number 1 overall fantasy football pick for 2023 at the end of the 2021 football season. We've known this guy was coming. It's a first-round running back, which is rare enough. We'll get to the other odd running back pick here in a little bit. But Bijan to the Falcons on a team that loves to run the ball like crazy. Now they've got
Now
Drake
all they need
London.
is a defense.
Yeah, they've got Drake London. They have Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, so a very young core of very strong contributors on the outside. If Desmond Ridder can get something going, that offense could be good. Defense has to be the focus of the next 6 rounds, I think, though.
Yeah, because that's definitely what you ask. What do they need? They literally need to draft a defense. So when you see how many times last year is just like when they had a chance to win or they were close and then just
Yeah, they need to do what the Panthers did a couple years ago and just spend the rest of their draft on defensive players because
the
Panthers have a good defense now, but they didn't when they
the,
did that move.
the only game that they really looked dominant, of course, was Week 18 when the Bucks. Okay, hey, we won the division, so we're sitting most of our players, so they just ran wild.
Yeah. All right, so Bijan, again, Dynasty Leagues, he's going to be your number 1 overall pick this year, unless someone's really dumb, at least. Maybe some super flex desperation there. But, yeah, that's a good situation for him to go into. That's one of the better ones you could have hoped for. Number 9, the Eagles trade back up 1 spot to get above the Chicago Bears to take Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle. This is the 3rd Georgia Bulldog they had taken in the last 2 drafts, and they still had a pick in the first round we'll get to a little bit later. The Bears take Darnell Wright, the offensive tackle, to protect Justin Fields. The Titans, this was the last real legitimate landing spot for Will Levis. Did not go here. It was Peter Skoronski, the offensive tackle from Northwestern. This was the end of the high-end offensive tackle tier as well.
Somebody did a humorous draft, and for the Titans, they put the most injury-prone player available.
I've seen that one. Then we go to number 12. This is one that was graded an F in the only grading of the first round that I have seen. The Detroit Lions, after trading down from 6 to 12, take running back Jahmyr Gibbs. Don't forget, this team still has DeAndre Swift. They drafted a couple years ago, and they just signed David
Not for much
Montgomery.
longer as they are fielding
like it,
calls for trade. So I think his time is nigh on the Lions.
But they just signed David Montgomery as well. Sounds like Gibbs is going to be the receiving running back more than anything. Expect Montgomery to be more the goal line and the every down rushing running back. Long yard situation might see Jahmyr Gibbs, and maybe DeAndre Swift is gone. We don't know yet. At number 13, the Green Bay Packers. There's a lot of connections. They would finally take a wide receiver in the first round just to smite Aaron Rodgers, and they did not. They took Lucas Van Ness, the edge rusher from Iowa. Steelers, Broderick Jones, offensive tackle from Georgia. A little bit of a reach. Probably the biggest reach was the Jets at 15. Will McDonald, the 4th from Iowa State, an edge rusher. And then, the Commanders, they're riding high off the new owner, and they reach as well.
Well, the Commanders from that funny draft, I'll have to edit this, but they had a funny entry. Engineer to fix their dog crap stadium.
Yeah. They need that. They take the cornerback Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State. The Patriots take cornerback Christian Gonzalez at pick 17. At 18, the Detroit Lions' second pick, they take Jack Campbell, the linebacker from Iowa. At 19, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers take defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh, Kalijah Kancey, who was getting... They said we can't compare him to Aaron Donald in the draft, and then immediately compared him to Aaron Donald in the draft. So if he is 80% of that player, I think the Bucs are going to be very happy with that pick.
Yeah, if there's anything that we saw with the Bucs, that they started out strong because when they had that first game against Dallas, they looked like literal world beaters. But by the time you got to the end of the season, the defense was definitely hurt and seemingly vanished. So they definitely need some depth.
Oh, yeah. And then we get to the wide receiver run. Seattle Seahawks at 20. Jackson Smith and Jigba to put with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. That receiving core just possibly became the best in the league. The Chargers take Quentin Johnson out of TCU. He is a big-bodied monster.
Yeah. You would like the entry for the Chargers. Someone to help them choke in the playoffs.
There you go. Baltimore Ravens get Zay Flowers. This was somebody who was actually getting a lot of hype. Could have went as the number 1 receiver off the board from Boston College. He does go 22 to the Baltimore Ravens. And then rounding out the wide receiver run, 4 consecutive picks at wide receiver. First time that's ever happened. Jordan Addison to the Minnesota Vikings to line up opposite of Justin Jefferson. So all 4 of those should be high dynasty targets in dynasty rookie drafts here in a couple weeks. But yeah, those are all very impactful going forward. 24. New York Giants select Deontay Banks, the quarterback out of Maryland. This is a team that badly needs wide receivers and got just on the wrong end of that run, so they do not get one in round 1. The Buffalo Bills. Oh, by the way, Jacksonville had 24, traded back to 25, then traded back to 27.
Well, the entry for Jacksonville Jaguars, even though it was traded, was a private bookie for Calvin Ridley.
Yeah. 25. The Buffalo Bills traded up with Jacksonville to take Dalton Kincaid in front of the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys take Mazi Smith, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. The Jaguars finally do pick at 27. Anton Harrison, the offensive tackle out of Oklahoma, to help protect Trevor Lawrence. It's not a team that really needs anything flashy. They just need that grit and depth and maybe a little bit of help on the defensive side as well. Cincinnati Bengals at 28, Myles Murphy, the edge rusher from Clemson. The Saints, Brian Bresee, defensive tackle from Clemson. And then at number 30, Nolan Smith to the Philadelphia Eagles from Georgia, the 4th Georgia Bulldog from that defense from the 2001 and 2002 2022 national championship teams. Nolan Smith going with Jalen Carter and going with a couple more from last year. I don't know how they let that happen, the NFL. And then Kansas City Chiefs at 31, Felix Anudike Uzama, the edge rusher from Kansas State. You might think, hey, there's 32 teams. There should be 32 picks. Remember, the Dolphins had a forfeited first-round pick that would have been pick number 21.
Oh, yeah, because of all of the
Stephen Ross, lose games,
tampering.
please. Yeah, lose games, tamper with Tom Brady, all that fun stuff. They're one of 5 teams that did
tampering
not
and
pick.
the bribery and the paying to tank and all that wonderful.
Yeah,
crap
one of
they
5 teams that did not pick in the first round. The Niners, the Dolphins, the Browns, and the Rams, and
Browns are
Broncos.
like that. Browns are like the video your factory of sadness anyway. So
yeah, Broncos no pick till round 3. Rams will pick early in round 2. Dolphins have a middle of round 2, mid to late round 2. Browns and 49ers, they're still going to have a ways to go as well. Worst or overall thoughts? Anything stand out from the first round?
I know it's not actual players. It was something that actually happened. I tended to like the kid that actually introduced the Jets pick, well composed, and also as a bonus, you figure, okay, how do we get the Jets fans to not boo the pick? Maybe if we have a kid read it, that will help. So, but he had an amazing presence, and a green tie, green handkerchief, really just dressed up to the max and absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, he as much as I hate to say it for the Jets, he was spectacular that night. I don't think it was the moment of the night. I will get to that in my final thought, but he was definitely one of the highlights of the draft. Obviously, you get all the hugs and stuff with the commissioner. You get all the booing of the commissioner. You get some of these oddball stories that come out. And, of course, watching Will Levis just plummet, that was good for the soul of everybody.
Well, yeah, somebody had a meme where they were like, somebody was, oh, could you hand the phone to your girl? Yeah, we're taking your girl on 36.
Yeah, Sean McVay. Hey, is this Will? Oh, yeah, finally. I can't wait. No, hand the phone to your girl. We're taking a girl with a 36 pick. And she's just like looking there as all done up as you could possibly be. Yeah. For me, it was the fact that, I thought the Texans were going to be the most interesting team because you never knew what they were going to do at 2. There was rumors at 12 they were going to try and get that quarterback in the second pick, then to trade back up to get arguably the best defensive player and possibly the best quarterback in this draft back-to-back, really going for it. It might not work, but at least they're pushing to do something good as opposed to what the Texans have been doing for the last few years. And we look forward to rounds 2 and 3 tonight. Of course, the first round gets all the glitz and the glamour, but second and third round picks often are what makes a team great or means your draft was a miss. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, and I do have to get out a special, and I know it doesn't have absolutely anything to do with the NFL or the draft, but had a very sad passing with the Rays this past couple of months, as totally completely out of nowhere I woke up. It was a Sunday, and I saw Mark Topkin had posted a tweet saying that Dave Wills, a well-known Rays play-by-play announcer had passed. And that's just the thing that all of a sudden just hits you completely out of nowhere because he was very young. And I just remember I never had the fortune to meet him personally, but I did have some interaction with him on social media. And I just remember probably the best memory from him was I'll never forget. I sort of was listening to the game, and on Twitter we were somehow we started talking about uh, bad Rays pitchers, and I brought up, of course, Casey Fossum. Anybody who remembers any Rays history at all remembers how horrid a pitcher Casey Fossum really was. He was bad. And then all of a sudden, I'm listening to the game and I'm realizing that the conversation carried over and they're talking about it on the radio. And that's like your first moment, like, holy crap. So that was just unbelievably, amazingly cool. He was just absolutely fantastic. And the thing that you realize is that just not with me. That's the way he was with everybody because some people you just sort of have they're snooty or because of their position or they're oh I'm the radio announcer and all that or but I sense never any of that from Dave Wills and it was just an absolute shock, absolute huge loss to the community. And I know Dave Fried and Neil Solondz are doing a hell of a job, but it's just one of those voices that will always be there, and it's just a sort of a very different feeling. So we definitely miss you, Dave, and thank you for all of the broadcasts that you did and for all of the hard work.
Yeah, that was very shocking right at the end of spring training too, right before the season started. So you weighed heavy on the heart of the fans and of the Rays going into the season. The Rays have come out 21-5, so they are definitely having a season Dave Wills would be very proud of. And unfortunately, we won't hear his thoughts on it, but yeah, very sad passing, very sudden, no real warning on that one.
And just completely out of nowhere. But now back to football as we sort of switch channels back, but had to get that out.
Yeah, so let's do let's go to final thoughts. Actually, I think we've kind of covered the first round of the draft. We're not going to go and start guessing on who's going to go where in the second and third rounds. That's going to happen here in about 25 minutes anyway. So, Joel,
my final thoughts are I'm actually going into the Wayback Machine, going to the 2020, as I'm sure you remember, the virtual draft that ended up happening, and I ended up writing down three moments from that draft. But before I get to those, it's a sort of a weird moment as you had the moment where, of course, Henry Ruggs was drafted and he put on that robe, and just how everything turned out, it just sort of a reminder. It's just like, ouch. But going to happier memories, I jotted down three memories from that draft because at the time you had it was the Tiger King and the Last Stands, and that's what dominated because of course no sports at all, and all of a sudden it's like the draft. Oh my God, there's something to talk about. So of course, moment number one. I'm sure you remember C.D. Lamb not having any of his girlfriend checking his phone. Yeah, just no.
yeah, Sean McVay was not getting that girl's information. CeeDee Lamb was having none of that. Will Levis, you might get pushed around, but CeeDee Lamb was not.
Number two, of course, was Jerry Jones' War Room was on his
yacht.
enormous yacht. That was just
That's
unbelievable.
just a flex right there.
Yeah, it's just called, okay, yeah, I'm rich and you're not. But of course, the best moment of all of the 2020 draft had to be when you were cutting to the Patriots' War Room and we see the lower thirds. Bill Belichick, Patriots head coach, but Belichick's dog Nike
It was his
was
husky.
still shown on the chair. Best draft moment ever. And that's my final thought.
That was a good one for very fun and humorous reasons. The one I'm going to talk about happened last night. It actually happened about 10 minutes before the official opening of the draft. That was where the NFL honored the three Virginia University football players that were killed in a shooting prior to it. So they brought out Virginia alums Melissa Stark of the NFL Network and Jets former player DeBrickashaw Ferguson spoke to the skills and talents of the athletes on and off the field. And then Roger Goodell comes out and makes the announcement. All three of these players were dreaming of being NFL players. Tonight We are going to make that dream come true for their families. Their families come out on stage and they present a custom 23 jersey to the Jacksonville Jaguars for Davis. Lavelle Davis Jr., the Baltimore Ravens jersey. Devin Chandler, who is a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, got a 23 Jacksonville Jaguars jersey, and Deshaun Perry got a 23 white Miami Dolphins jersey. His family all on the stage. So a very, very touching moment. You saw people in the crowd crying, Rich Eisen afterwards, and not a dry eye in the house. And that one hit you a little bit different. Just a very nice way to honor three people gone way too soon that had legitimate NFL hopes and aspirations. So good on the NFL for doing right by these players. Of course, we can go into gun violence and talk and piss off 50% of the people with whichever viewpoint you want to have. We're not going to do that. But yeah, a good way to remember three 20 to 22-year-olds, I believe they were. And yeah, very, very touching moment. It's not going to replace their families, their children that are passed on, but it's at least something to know they are not forgotten, at least in the football community.
Agreed.
Yeah. Then the Jets kid was second, but still the dog one was pretty good. Anyways, that's
because you also had like with the whole Memphis Grizzlies, you had like the whole Ja Morant craziness that was going on.
Yeah. Basketball is just a joke. Lightning.
Yeah, because I know. Yeah, because did you see the Charles Barkley quote about he can't watch hockey? It's boring.
Well, we can't watch basketball because it's unwatchable. Personally, I can't do it. It's just not an entertaining sport to watch. Hockey is much more interesting. I will be watching the draft though, so I guess that says what it needs to say.
Go Bolts, go!
Go Bolts! They play tomorrow. They're down 3-2. Might as well update everything now. Maple Leafs Lightning. Toronto leads 3-2, but they'd like to blow leads, so this series definitely not over. Hurricanes lead their series 3-2. They play tonight with a chance to close out the Islanders. The Bruins going to Sunrise to play the Panthers tonight with a chance to close that one up. They are up 3-2. And the Devils have come back from 2-0 down to lead the Rangers 3-2 at this point. In the Western Conference, first team to advance is the Vegas Golden Knights, beating the Jets 4-1 in Game 5 and 4-1 in the series. Dallas.
Did you see that? Did you see somebody did a cool mashup? Because when Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets, they actually put him in a Winnipeg Jets uniform.
Not bad. Dallas Stars lead the Minnesota Wild 3-2. They play tonight with a chance to end that in Minnesota. The Avalanche, the defending Stanley Cup champions, down 3-2 to the Seattle Kraken, the most recent expansion team circa last year. Seattle with a chance to close that out tonight on home ice to advance to the second round. And the Oilers lead the Kings 3-2, playing tomorrow night with a chance to close that one out in LA. So that is a quick update of the NHL playoffs.
May I do a bonus? Did they do that?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sure everyone was had a bit of a chuckle when you had Russell Wilson overturning his golf cart. Yeah, that happened, but that's not the best part of the story because you actually had Sean Payton getting in a good at his new quarterback because he must have been during a presser, but his quote was, "I hope we keep all the golf carts upright."
Yeah.
Close quote. So Sean Payton has won the month.
Yeah. Anyways, round 2 of the draft tonight.
Let's ride.
Broncos country. Let's ride. Round 2 of the NFL draft. Round 2 and 3 starts at 7 p.m. tonight, so in about 19 minutes from right now. Then round numbers 4 through 7 tomorrow. I have a disc golf tournament first thing in the morning, and my knee is still killing me. So that's going to be fun and interesting.
When did you start, Ryan, on your fantasy disc golf team?
Hey, you asked me that last week, and I said I didn't think that was a good play, and I finished 8th. So it could, and then I shot almost a personal best of that course. So I think it was a personal best. So, I mean, I wouldn't count me out. This is probably a weaker field than I'm used to playing. So maybe we get lucky and get our first win here. But it's a course that historically in tournaments I don't play as well as when I play it just to practice. I think my 2 tournament rounds have been 6 and 7 over respectively, and I've shot a 9 under on that course. So probably a better bet this week than it was last week, but last week worked out all right. Also, if you do want to play fantasy disc golf, that is a real thing, and it's called Disc Dynasty. If you do, it's still in the beta, or it was in the beta. If you're interested, it is out there. Also, kudos to Isaac Robinson for winning the Champions Cup. While we're on the topic, the first major of the disc golf season, 40 under in 4 rounds. All right, that's our time before I start going into disc golf, because I know most people that listen to this, including Joel, have no idea what I'm talking about.
Sort of glaze over.
Like, he's talking about frisbees going in the air, man. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
We're talking about practice, not the game.
Talking about a major championship, but yeah, it's still not the same as the NFL draft. So enjoy the NFL draft tonight and tomorrow, and get ready for those dynasty drafts coming up in a couple of weeks. And then before you know it, we're going to be in training camp and getting ready for the 2023 football and fantasy football season. So yeah, that's the sports shuffle for today. So I'm flying Ryan Gilchrist along with
Tampa Motormouth, Joel Verlin.
And we'll be back at some point. It's been a minute, but it's the off season. It's pretty slow. We do this when we feel like there's a reason to, and there was a reason to with the draft and all the Lamar and Aaron Rodgers news of this week. So
finally have come to fruition.
Yeah, and maybe next time we'll have the 16 teamer back filled up to 14 out of 16 on Sleeper. 2 spots left, and nobody who hasn't joined from the Yahoo League is probably going to do it because Yahoo Fantasy Communication is garbage. It's boo. And with that lame joke, we're gone.